were the people of Battersea? What did they do and how have they changed? Early maps of London, drawn about 1746, show that Battersea was agricultural land. From St Mary's as far as what is now Albert Bridge Road, it was known as Battersea Common Field or Battersea Fields. Grain was grown there, and in many market gardens, peas, carrots, asparagus and lavender, for which Battersea became famous. Views showed flour mills and fields being worked with St Paul's in the distance. Brick-making also happened there, and even duelling. The Battersea gardeners had to get their produce to market. London's biggest market for fruit, vegetables and flowers was Covent Garden. Here the people of Battersea mingled with other street folk. 18th century prints show street folk selling their wares. An early Victorian reporter and contemporary of Charles Dickens, Henry Mayhew, interviewed many street folk, including those who bought Battersea produce, from street sellers to wholesale dealers. Street sellers ranged from peddlers who just had a tray or basket to costermongers who had a cart or barrow and sold from a pitch. There were distinctions between those whose cart or barrow was drawn by a horse or donkey and those who had to pull it themselves. Mayhew noted that the costers sold seasonally, from greens in winter to strawberries and currants in summer. The premium products were asparagus and strawberries. Each had their own call. A coster told Mayhew, "Then there's grass. That's often good money. At Covent Garden, where it's sold in bundles, it's always called, when cried in the streets, 'Sparrow grass!'" Strawberries came from out of town. The call was, "Fine strawberries, all ripe, all ripe." On a cold day, almost every fruit seller had roasted chestnuts for sale. There were other markets, including Borough in Southwark. In the 18th century, local celebrities included the innovative writer Daniel Defoe, best known for Robinson Crusoe, and later the visionary William Blake, who was married at St Mary's. Back to Mayhew, who noted that being a flower girl was a dubious profession, which is probably why the flower seller Eliza Doolittle protests, "I'm a good girl, I am, in My Fair Lady." The street folk tradition continued into the 1870s, as this 1877 photo taken on Clapham Common shows. A mush faker repaired old umbrellas. At the same time as Henry Mayhew was meeting the street folk, new industries were reaching Battersea. This industrial or artisan work attracted immigrants, so its population grew from nearly 7,000 in 1841 to over 150,000 by 1891. According to Mayhew, costers were considered superior to labourers. Irish were considered inferior to English. Many Irish were attracted into manual work in the area, first on the railways, then on houses. Manual workers were known as navvies, after those who had dug the canals, also known as the navigation. Irish builders were mocked in a cartoon. As soon as the stations opened, spec builders began to lay out streets of medium-sized houses. As the area was built up, the market gardens became back gardens for the families of middle-class clerks, white-collar workers with incomes ranging from £150 a year upwards. The problem of housing the working class remained. The Shaftesbury estate was a model development by workers to house themselves. Built on the site of Poupart's Market Garden, Lord Shaftesbury himself showed his goodwill by laying the foundation stone in 1872. Its first residents were better off workers and clerks. Pubs were banned within the estate, but a happy medium between the pub and the Literary Institute was filled by the Surrey Albemarle Club. The estate's low-rise houses were more attractive than the Peabody Trust's blocks of flats, nor were they jerry-built like workers' houses in the poorer parts of Battersea. Battersea's social mix ranged from labourers to clerks who became early commuters. Taking the train to work was a middle-class characteristic. Battersea continued to become more middle-class as the remaining land was filled in by late Victorian and Edwardian medium-sized houses. By the late 1800s, the time of Sherlock Holmes, the local population included shopkeepers like butchers, shopgirls, house agents and workers on the railways, buses and trams, as well as local industries such as Price's, Morgan's and Garton's. The First and Second World Wars brought change. Women had to step in to take jobs left open by men joining the armed forces, for example on the railways. The people of Battersea volunteered for the armed forces and at hospitals, but they suffered severely from air raids. Battersea Station and Christchurch were hit. A memorial to local victims of the Second World War opened by Christchurch in 1952. In the late 20th century, some local industries were replaced by creative endeavours. Where Whiffins had made chemicals, Clearwater Features made Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, and many other stop-motion animation films. In a similar way, Battersea Town Hall became Battersea Arts Centre. Battersea's contribution to the arts include film writers and musicians. Notably blind jazz pianist and composer George Shearing, Sting and his lead guitarist Dominic Miller. Good descriptions of recent life in Battersea were expressed in Up the Junction, which was a book, a film and a 1979 hit song. As the industries declined or moved away in the 20th century, the property developers moved in. The riverside became a premium location for luxury flats and amenities. If you have enjoyed this presentation, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.